hearts. Welcome back to my author journey series. And this week feels really personal. So it doesn't, not really dramatic or chaotic or anything. It just feels really real. Because as this journey grows, I am being stretched in multiple directions, which is all a good thing, right? But I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I work a full time job, I'm writing books, building a legacy for my family, and I can just feel God pulling me more into ministry, which is all a beautiful thing. And it is stretching. And stretching sometimes requires boundaries. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So today, I do want to talk about communication and boundaries, especially when you are called to many things at once. Because if you don't define your boundaries, you can be exhausted, and nobody wants that. Nobody has time for that. Okay. So let me start here. Being stretched is really not a sign that you are failing. It's often a sign that you are growing, which is really what I'm noticing now is that I'm just growing in these stretching moments that I've experienced. But growth without structure, it can create burnout. This season has really required me to sit with God and ask, what is mine to carry? And then, what is mine to steward and what is mine to release? Because just because something is good does not mean it's mine. So that's kind of where I'm growing in maturity in this season where I'm being stretched, right? So here's something I'm also learning, and it's really that excellence requires margin, right? If I am constantly pulled in every direction, answering every call, responding to every message, immediately saying yes to every opportunity, I can show up depleted, right? So, and deleted people cannot produce excellence consistently, right? So, excellence is not about perfection, it's about intention. And intention requires boundaries, right? Boundaries protect your time, your energy, your focus, your tone, your family, because without them, even good things start to feel heavy. Like you could be doing all these wonderful things, but if you don't have any boundaries in place, you can get tired, you can get exhausted, you can get burnt out, and that's no good for anybody. So I want to talk about communication. As you know, this month has been about communication and conflict resolution. And specifically in this author journey that I'm on, I wanted to talk about setting boundaries because this is another layer to what I'm building with my family, for my family. You know what I mean? So, boundaries without communication can also feel like rejection, right? So, communication without boundaries feels like resentment, or it could feel like resentment waiting to happen. So, how do you communicate boundaries in love with people, right? So, this is a really getting towards the conflict resolution part because you don't want to come across that way, but you do want to be clear in what your boundaries are when you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, right? You need to speak early, speak clearly, speak calmly, right? Just letting people know kind of what you have going on, you know, so, for example, I may have to say things like, I can't commit to that right now, or my schedule is pretty full this week, or I need to really protect my family time, or I'll respond when I have the capacity to do it well, or, things like that that is understandable, right? When you just are able to explain to folks what you have going on, then it's easier for them to digest and understand and respect that because they probably have a lot of things going on as well. So, and then notice what those things are not, right? It's not defensive, it's not harsh, it's not me over explaining. It's just really clear about what I have going on so that people can plan accordingly, right? So when you're secure in your calling, you don't need to justify every boundary. You just need to communicate it respectfully. And that's what I'm learning to do myself. So all these things that I'm saying are definitely things that I'm learning to do as well. So right now there are, and I mentioned this, there are multiple lanes in my life. So, marriage requires presence. Motherhood requires my availability. My full-time career requires my focus, excellence. Maintaining this YouTube channel requires content planning and recording time. Writing for me requires creativity and solitude. And then ministry requires spiritual sensitivity, right? When you're focusing on your ministry and what that looks like. And if I try to operate in all six lanes at once, then something's going to suffer, right? And we don't want that, right? I'll be tired, I'll be exhausted, my tone might shift. And then again, nobody wants that side of them to come out. So you have to protect your time. And then there are times when, I am fully in work mode and I don't have time in any place else. There are times when I'm fully in mom mode. There are times when I'm fully in wife mode, writing mode, some content creating machine, all of these things um, at one time. And then what that means though is that I may be unavailable in those other areas, right? So if I'm focused on just one specific area of my lanes, then something else has to be put to the side at that moment, right? And that just depends on what's happening that week or that day that will determine what my focus is going to be. So, and that's not neglect, right? That's stewardship. That's being mindful of what is the immediate need at work week or that week where I have lots of ministry things or whatever it is, right? It's just that's just proper stewardship. So, and then let me be transparent here too. So when I am overextended, which it feels like I don't feel that yet, but I do recognize that there is a lot of things that I'm being called to do right now, right? So not feeling overextended, I do feel a shift in my priorities, and all good things, right? Like all of like the work I'm doing for the Lord, the work I'm doing in church, the work I'm doing with the book and the channel, and all of that stuff is good because I'm connecting and reaching people, which is what the goal is. But it definitely is causing me to really maintain and manage my time more wisely as well. So, but like I was saying, when I'm overextended, my tone can change. And your tone matters when you're talking and dealing with people, especially in ministry, right? I never want to build a brand publicly while being short with people, or, never want to be ministering publicly while I'm being impatient at home. Like, excellence begins in the unseen, like what people can't see. So if I'm protecting my tone, that means I'm protecting my rest, I'm protecting my calendar, protecting my mornings with God. Those devotionals that I say I journal, love to read devotionals. And that's not being selfish, it's just necessary for my mental stability and being able to perform the way that I want to perform in each of these lanes that I'm in. So I can feel God expanding my capacity in ministry. And expansion requires order. God does things decent and in order, right? Because God definitely does not call for us to be and enter into chaos, right? So he calls us into alignment, and alignment sometimes looks like saying no. Jesus withdrew often. He left crowds. He rested. He prayed. And if the Son of God required boundaries, I certainly can too. Amen. And I'm sure you can too as well. So, um, so let me also say this. Boundaries are not just for outsiders, right? They are for your household too. That means like your immediate family, right? So I communicate with my husband about what's on my plate, letting him know what season I'm in, what the day looks like. So he's very fully aware of what I have going on. So that helps him to understand that I'm not neglecting him. I'm just being pulled in a lot of different areas, maybe for that day or for that week. But then I also make a time to make sure that we connect at some point during the week where we have husband and wife time, because that's very important to me. So we talk about busy seasons. We talk about what support looks like from each other. What do you need from me this week? What can I give to you this week? That kind of stuff. And then we talk about what needs to shift, right? Like, I miss you, babe. Like, what's going on? Like, I was like, okay, so I might have to, if hubby needs something, then I might have to put something to the side, because if I don't want to make him feel like I don't have time for him, nobody wants to feel like, you don't have time for somebody. So that's why it's also very important to communicate what you have going on. Communication honestly keeps resentment from forming, I would say. And then silence breeds misunderstanding. So when you don't communicate, then it leaves people to their imagination, and they could be making up things that aren't necessarily true because you haven't communicated what's going on. So be careful. I'm learning to be careful with that as well. So clarity builds unity. The same goes for my children. They need to understand why mommy's writing, why mommy's building, why mom has certain focused hours. And then I always make sure to check back in with them, even if I'm like, okay, give me a minute, let me finish what I'm doing here, and then I'll reach back out to you with, with whatever you need or whatever you wanted to talk to me about, right? I have my daughter's away at college, so I have to also make sure that if I can't always talk to her, I make sure that I text her, let her know I'm thinking of her, I love you, call me when you can, or letting her know when I'm available to talk if she wants to talk, right? And the same goes with my sons, right? They're here, they're home with me. She's away, so it's a little bit different dynamic, but same rules apply. So when you communicate vision to your family, you invite them into it. And that's one thing I will say I'm definitely excited about. Like the things that I'm doing, I'm sharing with my husband, sharing with my children, incorporating them into what I'm doing. So then it creates more family time for us with the business that I'm building or with what's going on with each book that I'm writing, letting them know the stories behind it and causing us to have additional interactions. So that's been really fun, just communicating on a different level with my children as they get older. We're able to talk about more of these things, why I'm writing these books and what are the messages within it, and having that conversation, having them ask me questions about it. So that's been really fun. So and then, like I said, and all of that relates to just legacy becoming a shared experience between me and my family. And it's not a separate thing that I'm doing on my own. It's something I'm sharing with them. And that goes back to the legacy piece as well. So the reason boundaries matter so much to me is it's really, really simple. I want to operate from a place of excellence. This is something from a coworker of mine that says all the time in our employee resource groups. And she's a fantastic lady. And she just always, always, always expresses to us in our ERG, in our employee resource group, to operate from a place of excellence. And I really believe that translates into all the things that you're doing, right? Whether it's ministry, whether it's your career, whether it's your business, whatever it is, you should operate from a place of excellence. And that's where it's important to be able to communicate what those boundaries are in those different lanes that you're in, whatever those lanes may be, right? So it's not exhaustion, it's not irritation, it's not survival mode, it's excellence in, like for me, like my marriage, my work, my writing, my ministry. Excellence requires intentionality, and intentionality requires boundaries, right? Boundaries are important. And I know some people like cringe at the word when you set boundaries, like, but it really just honestly protects your peace and make sure it makes room for the different lanes that you're in. I'll say that. So, and here's what I'm learning spiritually about all of this. God, again, is not rushing me. He is opening so many different lanes right now, and he's just giving me the opportunity to learn and to grow in a lot of different areas. So he stretches me, but he doesn't rush me, right? When I feel frantic, that is usually pressure. It's not him. It's like me feeling pressure to do something or to get something done, and that's not necessarily what he's saying to me. His voice steadies and calms me when I think about his word, and I think about what he's actually doing in my life. It's very calming knowing that I'm in his will, right? So when I align my schedule with his presence first, everything else finds its place. Boundaries become clearer, conversations become calmer, decisions become easier. So, and then because peace then becomes the filter, right? So then all of that relates to just the peace that I feel when I'm calm and when I'm just knowing that I'm in his will, and I know that I'm, align with the word and align with his will for my life and the purpose that he has set before me. So I said a lot. So if you are feeling stretched right now, ask yourself these things. Where do I need a boundary? Where have I been unclear? Right? Or where am I overcommitted? Right? Am I saying yes out of a calling or out of guilt or pressure? Like what? Identify what that is. And then boundaries in love are not rejection, right? They're protection. And protection allows you to show up fully, right? Okay. So I hope that is a blessing to you all. These are things, again, that I like to share as I'm learning different things in these different lanes that I'm in, because I'm definitely in a new season in my life. And it's just God stretching me in the most beautiful way. So I had to, spend some time with them, sit down and think about, okay, where are my priorities? What needs to happen here? What needs to, and that may look different every week, right? I may be pulled more for work in this one week. I may be pulled more in ministry. I may be pulled more in like doing the YouTube channel or my book or writing or whatever it is, but it's definitely making sure that I'm aligned with whatever it is that God has for me. So I hope this message blessed you in some way and some of this or all of it resonated with you as well. So just want to remind you of a couple things again this month. I did post, as you all know, I did post some updates to the website. I had a very exciting week last week where I was able to talk to a professional publisher who gave me a lot of great feedback, a lot of great insight. Really thought the foundation of my book and everything was very strong. And that just really encouraged me. Sometimes you write things and you're like, oh, is anybody going to care? Is anybody going to understand? And I'm definitely feeling like what I wrote is resonating with people. And that's a blessing in itself, right? So with all of that, refinement was necessary, right? So I refined the website, refined the cover, and just made it more accessible on Apple Books and on Lulu Bookstore. So I have links and everything in the description and in my bio on YouTube, so you all can have access to all of that. But check it out. It's a new Blind Faith phase 3 launch. I guess this is now phase 3. Yeah, this is phase 3. So more refined website, more accessibility, just again, building with intentionality, communicating clearly, and then setting boundaries with love with everybody, right? So I'm choosing excellence in every lane. And sometimes that means just setting boundaries in certain areas. So if this resonated with you, let me know in the comments where you're being stretched right now, if you feel led. And then please stay tuned for more because more is always coming, dear hearts. Have a good one.